Well, howdy everyone. My name is DGoebel, and I'm excited to be with you just to share a little bit about myself, my personal paradigm for youth at risk, and then just some challenges or potential risks that I've overcome in my life. To get started, we'll talk a little bit about me. You'll see in my very first picture is probably one of the most important things in my life, and that is my husband, Nolan Gable. You'll see in a couple of my pictures, we actually just got married last September around this time, so much of my pictures are still about the wedding. It was a pretty big deal then, so that's kind of what I got going on right now. Myself and Nolan live here in College Station, where we both work, and we have just a couple of heifers together. We enjoy being outside, doing a little bit of ranching, fishing, hunting, that type of thing. Moving on to the top right is my family. That's another very important part in my life. You can see I have a fairly large family. We're all very close, love to hang out. These folks in this top right picture are absolutely the reason I am the person I am today, and so I can attribute much of who I am to these folks, and so I'm thankful for that. Moving down right below that picture is a very cool cross, and this kind of says two things about me. Number one, I am very deeply rooted in my faith, but number two, this cool cross is from my hometown, which is Ballinger, Texas. Ballinger is a small, rural, agricultural-based town in West Texas, kind of between San Angelo and Abilene. It's here where I got to learn the majority of what I know now. This is where I got to be very involved in 4-H and FFA, where I participated in a number of projects from livestock to leadership, public speaking, things like that. Much of the things I know now are attributed, like I said, to my family and then to my upbringing in Ballinger. That kind of brings me to my last picture on this slide, which is the bottom left, and that's youth livestock shows. Lucky for me, I get to combine my passion personally and my professional goals into one very awesome program, and that is the Youth Livestock Program here in Texas. I get to go to a number of shows, work with a number of youth, and I am definitely thankful to be able to kind of live my passion every day in my current job. Moving on, just a little bit more about me. I did get both my undergrad and master's degree here at A&M. My undergraduate degree was in animal science. I graduated in 2014 and then started my master's, like I said, in ALEC and finished up, I guess, about 2 years ago. So throughout both of those degrees, I was working for Texas A&M AgriLife Extension as both a student worker and then a graduate assistant, and I am still working for AgriLife Extension and hope to for years to come. It's been a great program for me to learn and work, and I am hopeful to serve that organization for the years to come. That kind of brings me to my role in youth development today, and this will kind of set the framework for my paradigm of youth at risk and so forth. So, as I mentioned previously, I do work at the Texas 4-H headquarters here in College Station. More specifically, my unit is Texas Youth Livestock and Agriculture. So like I said, a very cool part of my job is I get to go to all of the major livestock shows here in Texas, plus some, and here we facilitate all of the state validation for both the steer and heifer validation programs for Texas. While we're at these shows, we also get to interact with fair goers, the public kind of audience there, and that's where these youth in the bottom right come into play. Another part of my job, other than the livestock itself, is more importantly the youth that are on the halter of those steers, that are in front of those sheep, that are driving those hogs. Those are the most important part of my job, and one of the things we do out of our office is lead the Livestock and Equine Ambassador Program, and our Ambassador Program kind of brings in the best and brightest youth in the state. And from here, we get to teach them about agricultural advocacy, ag policy, and just their role in helping us propel the agriculture and livestock industry forward. So that's a little bit about what I get to do. A little bit about the youth I get to serve is kind of twofold. Number one being exhibitors. So that's a wide range of youth. It can range from basically some of the most at-risk youth who are using that project as a learning tool, and then some a lot more youth that have virtually no risk and who get to do that program for the learning opportunities, for the career possibilities, and so forth. But I'll get into that a little bit more. But that's just about some of the youth I get to work with and what I do on a daily basis in terms of youth development. Moving on, we'll talk about my personal paradigm for youth at risk. Like I've kind of mentioned throughout the program, and kind of what each of you probably have a similar upbringing, but I was fortunate to have been brought up in an environment that kind of put me in a position where I was nearly free from any personal risk, and I'm very fortunate to have that. I'm not tooting my own horn, but again, that's just back to my great family, great town that I grew up with excellent leaders, and just a great environment for me to learn and grow. However, from here, like I said, in my position, I do get to work with some youth that are at risk. This has definitely been a learning opportunity for me. I get to work under very professional leaders in my department who have kind of brought me along through that process. I definitely see this as an opportunity for me. I, as a servant leader, can help these youth kind of get from a place of at-riskness, and how we can kind of transform that into an opportunity to kind of get to show off that resiliency of some of these youth. So that is one thing I'll say. Of the small portion of youth that I work with that are at risk, those are definitely the resilient type of youth who are ready to tackle that head on, and I'm thankful to be a part of that story. However, I know that that's not always going to be the case. I absolutely know that in my career of youth development, I am going to run into those situations where I'm going to have to help some people in a big way. And I'm looking forward to learning throughout this course, and as I develop in my career, and kind of join those two in tandem, so I can become, even more professional in my service in youth development. That kind of brings me to a question that I've posed to myself as I was reading the chapter, and then just having an opportunity to sit down and think of youth at risk. And that lends this question of, what if no risk at all is in itself a risk? I know that's a little bit kind of awkwardly worded, but it had me thinking, what if a youth such as myself, who was brought up in a very great environment with virtually no risk, what if that in itself is a risk in terms of when these type of youth get into college or into the workforce, they aren't maybe equipped to face some of these hardships or difficulties? I don't really know the answer yet, but I'm looking forward to delving more into this course, and into learning a little bit more to see if I can kind of work through that question. Just about overcoming some of the obstacles in my life. I just really hate even calling them obstacles, because I know that some folks really face risk every single day that are much larger than this. But just briefly, I did attend a very small high school. Not sure if this was a risk or not. I saw it as an opportunity, just more folks to get to know better, that could serve as a resource to me. I could serve as a resource to them. I saw that small group of 69 classmates as an opportunity, but could have been a risk if it would have went a different way. Kind of along the same lines, my study skills, coming from a small school, I was at the top of my class. Didn't really have the study skills necessary to face some of those large freshman classes, such as chemistry, biology. But again, just an opportunity I used to get better personally. Finally, could have been a risk. We worked through it, but my dad did work in the oil field throughout my growing up and still today. And when I was at home, my dad did work away from home during the week. Me and my mom made that work. So, like I said, these are potential risks. Didn't play too much of a risk factor in my upbringing, but just certainly things to think about and touch on. Like I said, I'm a pretty positive person, so luckily for my case, I was able to view these risks as a possibility. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to going through this class with each of you.